Aliyah Boston walked off that court like someone had just ripped her heart out. What she said after the camera stopped rolling would shock even the most hardcore Fever fans. This wasn't just another loss, this was the moment that exposed everything wrong with how the WNBA treats its rising stars. The Indiana Fever just suffered one of the most painful defeats in recent memory, not because they got blown out, but because they had victory
Go hot, guys. Go hot, guys. She doesn't have a microphone.
in their hands and watched it slip through their fingers in the most controversial way possible. Aliyah Boston, the team's anchor, delivered a post-game statement so loaded with frustration that it revealed the shocking reality behind what's really happening to this franchise. Tonight, we're diving deep into the untold story of this crushing loss. We'll expose the injury catastrophe that nobody saw coming, the impossible mission thrust upon Kelsey Mitchell, the emergency signing that backfired spectacularly, and most importantly, what Boston really meant when she said those two devastating words that sent shockwaves through the organization. By the end of this breakdown, you'll understand why this single game might have changed everything for the Indiana Fever's future. Here's what the mainstream media won't tell you. The Fever didn't just lose a basketball game, they lost their entire identity in one brutal week. Picture this. You're building your offense around three specific point guards. Sydney Colson, the veteran floor general, Ari McDonald, the defensive pest who could run the break, and Caitlin Clark, the superstar rookie who was supposed to be the face of the franchise. These weren't just players, they were the foundation of everything head coach Stephanie White was trying to build. Then disaster struck. In one horrific sequence against Phoenix, Colson tore her ACL. Same night, McDonald fractured her foot. Both injuries season-ending, both careers potentially altered forever. And Clark, still sidelined with that mysterious groin injury that's kept her out since July. Overnight, the Fever went from having depth at the most crucial position to having absolutely nothing. No ball handlers, no one to break pressure, no one to run the complex offensive sets this roster was specifically designed to execute. This wasn't a minor adjustment, this was architectural destruction of their entire game plan. But the real breaking point came when this collapse forced Kelsey to do two jobs at once. What happened next should be studied in coaching clinics as either brilliant adaptation or organizational malpractice. With no other options, the coaching staff made a decision that would change everything. They moved Kelsey Mitchell, their lethal scorer, into the point guard role. Think about how insane this really is. It's like asking Steph Curry to play center or forcing LeBron to guard opposing point guards full-time. Mitchell built her reputation as a pure scorer, catch-and-shoot threes, getting buckets in traffic, creating offense in tight windows. Suddenly, she's responsible for bringing the ball up against full-court pressure, orchestrating half-court sets, and still somehow finding a way to score 20-plus points per game. Against Dallas, you could see the weight crushing her. Every possession started in her hand. Every defensive scheme was designed specifically to make her life miserable. Dallas sent traps, doubles, and constant pressure because they knew if they stopped Mitchell, they stopped everything. And yet, and this is where it gets absolutely wild, she almost pulled it. Mitchell put up 24 points in this game, and on the final possession, her corner three hit the side of the rim. Deep threes, perfect assists, vocal leadership. She was doing everything. But here's the brutal truth nobody wants to admit. Asking one player to carry that much responsibility is unsustainable. It's not fair to Mitchell, and it's not a recipe for winning basketball. And this was only the beginning of how smart on paper decisions turned dangerous on the floor. Desperate times called for desperate measures, so the front office made an emergency move that would backfire in spectacular fashion. They signed Odyssey Sims to a hardship contract. On paper, it looked like a smart veteran addition. Sims had WNBA experience, could handle the ball, and was available immediately. What could go wrong? Everything. Sims arrived with less than 24 hours to learn the playbook. No chemistry with teammates, no understanding of the offensive set, no time to build trust with the coaching staff. When she stepped on the court for her debut against Dallas, she looked exactly like what she was, a player thrown into a situation she wasn't prepared for. Sims logged 12-49 with 0 points, 2 assists, 1 turnover, and countless possessions where she looked completely lost trying to figure out where her teammates wanted the ball. It was painful to watch, and even more painful for a team desperately needing stability at the point guard position. The hardship signing exposed just how thin the Fever's depth really was. When your emergency solution creates more problems than it solves, you know you're in serious trouble. Despite everything working against them, the Fever did something that should have been impossible. They nearly stole a victory that would have sent shockwaves throughout the WNBA. Down 17 points without their entire point guard rotation, they could have folded. Instead, they launched one of the most improbable comebacks of the season. Mitchell was the catalyst, but she didn't do it alone. Sophie Cunningham caught fire, hitting contested threes and diving for loose balls with that trademark intensity that makes her so dangerous. Chloe Bibby came off the bench red hot, drilling 3 straight from beyond the arc in just 12 minutes. Natasha Howard dominated the paint with a 12-point, 12-rebound double-double while erasing Dallas shots with her shot blocking. Even Aliyah Boston, fighting through constant contact and questionable calls, found ways to score in traffic and create second-chance opportunities. This wasn't one superstar taking over, this was a depleted roster refusing to quit. They outscored Dallas 25-14 in the fourth quarter. They turned a blowout into a nail-biter. They had the ball down one with a chance to win. That's what makes what happened next so absolutely devastating. Here's where the story takes a turn that will make your blood boil. Indiana gets the defensive rebound, down 11.7 seconds left. They have a timeout in their pocket. This is the moment championship coaches live for, drawing up the perfect play to steal a victory. Instead, they let the clock tick. Kelsey Mitchell pushes the ball in transition, takes a contested jumper that misses, and Dallas grabs the rebound. By the time Stephanie White calls timeout, there's only 1.7 seconds left. Far too late to run anything meaningful. After the game, White admitted the mistake. "I probably should have used it at the 3-second mark." Think about how rare it is for a head coach to publicly acknowledge a tactical error in such a critical moment. That tells you everything about how devastating this decision was. But the coaching decision was just one part of a much larger controversy that would dominate the post-game conversation. What happened with the referees during this game wasn't just bad officiating. It was so blatantly inconsistent that even the broadcasters couldn't hide their The most egregious call came when Aliyah Boston was fighting for position in the post. The Dallas center literally grabbed Boston's arm and held it down, a textbook hold that should have been called immediately. Instead, the officials whistled Boston for the foul. Even after video review, they let the call stand. Rebecca Lobo, calling the game, was stunned. She openly said she expected the call to be overturned because the contact was so obvious. When veteran broadcasters are questioning officiating in real time, you know something is seriously wrong. Then there was the Sophie Cunningham situation. She got hit with a flagrant foul for a closeout on Paige Bueckers after review. This came right after Bueckers herself had been assessed a flagrant for a similar play earlier in the game. The inconsistency was mind-boggling. But here's where it gets really infuriating. Kelsey Mitchell absorbed almost identical contact on a jump shot later in the game with no whistle at all. Same type of play, same level of contact, completely different standard applied. Stephanie White didn't hold back in her post-game comments. Kelsey is held or chucked on every freaking possession and never gets a call off the ball. Aaliyah is the worst officiated post player in the league. Those aren't the words of a coach making excuses. Those are the words of someone who's watched this pattern repeat game after game. Finally reaching her breaking point, you could see the frustration building throughout the fourth quarter, and it finally boiled over in ways that revealed just how much this team has been dealing with. Sophie Cunningham's reaction after being shoved by Bueckers was raw and unfiltered, a clear GDDMM before walking away. She later apologized, but that moment showed the emotional toll this inconsistent officiating was taking on the player. Even Caitlin Clark, sitting on the bench with her groin injury, couldn't contain herself. After the final buzzer, she was seen clapping forcefully in the direction of referee Amy Bonner, a subtle but clear message about her feelings toward the officiating. The most telling moment came when Stephanie White was arguing with an official and Aliyah Boston stepped in, visibly upset before Clark had to physically calm her coach down. These weren't isolated incidents. They were symptoms of a team that felt they were being treated unfairly at the most crucial moments. This emotional breaking point set the stage for what Boston would say after the cameras stopped rolling. After all the chaos, all the controversial
Fever lost
calls,
two
and
floor
all the
generals
missed
who were supposed to
opportunities,
dictate
reporters
pace.
gathered
She
around
later
Aaliyah
apologized
Boston for
publicly
her
for one
post-game
heated exchange
comments.
with
What
officials,
she said was
but
as
also stood by the
economical
point
as
she was
it was
making.
devastating.
That
We need better
competitive
focus. Two
one
words
came in
that
the
carried
fourth
the weight
quarter,
of an
when
entire
Aaliyah
season's
Boston fought for
frustration. But
position
here's
under the
what
rim,
makes this
and the
statement so powerful. It worked on multiple levels. On the surface, it was Boston taking accountability for the team's mistake. They had opportunities to win despite everything working against them, and they didn't execute when it mattered most. But dig deeper, and you'll find the real message. Better focus was also a subtle but clear criticism of the officiating that had disrupted their rhythm all night. It was Boston's way of saying they needed to focus on what they could control because they clearly couldn't rely on getting fair treatment from the referees. This wasn't just frustration talking, this was leadership. Boston was simultaneously holding her team accountable while sending a message about the external factors that made their job so much harder. This loss exposed everything wrong with the Indiana Fever's current situation. They're a talented team hampered by devastating injuries, questionable coaching decisions, and officiating that seems to work against them at crucial moments. But it also showed their incredible resilience. Despite losing their entire point guard rotation, despite controversial calls, despite having to rely on players in unfamiliar roles, they still nearly pulled off a statement victory against a team they were expected to beat easily. The real question now is whether this becomes a turning point or just another missed opportunity in what's been a frustrating season. With Caitlin Clark still rehabbing and the playoff race tightening, every remaining game carries enormous weight. Aaliyah Boston's post-game message, "We need better focus," might have seemed simple, but it revealed the complex reality of a franchise fighting battles on multiple fronts. The focus needs to come from the players, the coaching staff, and yes, even the officials who control the flow of these crucial games. This wasn't just about one loss in Dallas. This was about a young franchise trying to establish its identity while dealing with circumstances that would challenge even the most veteran organization. How they respond in the coming weeks will determine whether this season ends in disappointment or becomes the foundation for something much bigger. The countdown to the playoffs continues, but one thing is clear: this Indiana Fever team refuses to go quietly into the night. If you want the hidden dynamics that explain why this game was a turning point, jump to this video: Fever's roadmap to a comeback.